We're in Lightroom 3, we're in the library mode, and we're going to take a look at exporting pictures for use in Photoshop. You know, you may have worked your way through sort of Lightroom, you've then sort of come back and now you want to export it and do a little bit more work using layers in Photoshop. Doesn't matter if it's CS or Elements. Right, let's take a look. I've selected this picture here. How do we go about exporting this picture here? Well, we got a big important button with Export on. You might want to use that. You could also come to File. Clicking on File, you've got Export, and then you've also got Export with Previous, Export with Presets. What's all this about? We'll cover this just a little bit later. And Export as a catalogue. In other words, you can export a whole range of pictures as a catalogue. You can also come to the image itself. You can right-click. Down the bottom is Export, but from the flyout menu, there it is, just clicking on Export with Previous as we had before, and there are some presets down the bottom. As I said, we'll cover these just a little bit later. So as you can see, there's many different ways of using Export. You can also export as many pictures as you want. So let's make the most of that. I'm going to press Command or Control, clicking on this one. So we've now selected 2, 3, 4. Let's go for that one there. There it is. So we've selected these images here. Right, to export them, we'll go down to the big important looking button. We're going to click on this and it's now exporting 5 files. Export to. Export to your hard drive, export to your CD, DVD, export to Nike software, export to Perfect Layers 1. We're going to go to the hard drive. That's probably the best bet of the lot. The location, it's going to save it to on your hard drive. Now from this you also have a choice. Your home folder, your document folder, your picture folder, your desktop. You can sort of do the same folder as the original photo, entirely up to you. I tend to head for a specific folder, particularly if I'm using this as we are in this example where it's going to go to Photoshop. So I'm going to put it in my folder. It's on my image drive there, it's in my working folder, and you simply choose Choose. If you come down, if you sort of navigate to wherever you want to put it, there's my image folder there, there's the folders I've got, and that's my working folder I wish to put it onto. So I'm going to click Choose, and you can see there it is there. So it's on my image drive in my work folder. I'm also going to put it into a subfolder. So in other words, when it imports it into my working folder, sorry about all this folder business, but when you put it into your working folder, it is going to put it into a subfolder, and it's going to be called whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to call it Lightroom Images, so I know they have been exported from Lightroom. You can also add this to a catalog if you want to. I'm not going to do it with this. And export files. This is basically, what do you do if it comes across a file with the same name? Do you create a new file without exporting a file? Do you overwrite without warning, or do you skip? You can phone a friend, you can take 50-50. I think we're going to go to ask what to do. That's probably the safest option. But then we can also choose the file name for this as well. Now, we can rename it. We can go for a custom name. In other words, you can add your custom name in, and you can go for a sequence. You can start the sequence off with whatever number you want. So you've also got a choice of custom name, whatever you want it to be. You've got all these various options all the way down there. You've also got edit, where you can come in and you can create a custom template for this as well, which you can put the file name in, you can put the original file name in there, you can put in the month, date, the year, whatever you want to do with that. You can really customize this. It is fantastic. If you want to change it, just highlight it, press the delete key, and you can sort of grab hold of them and you can move them around into the chain of events as well. So it really is a great way of working. I'll leave that entirely up to you though. I'm going to click cancel and chicken out of it. We're going to go for Bristol with a sequence of 1. Right, fold that up out of the way. Moving swiftly on, you may have noticed, let's come back to it, it's Bristol1.psd. I'm going to, when we import them, I'm going to make sure I import it and I'm going to change it as a PSD file. This is my own personal preference. You have a choice of a JPEG, of a TIFF, as a DNG or the original, entirely up to you. My thinking behind this is it's a PSD file. I'm going to take it into Photoshop, I'm going to put layers on it, it's going to be a PSD file at the end of the day. That's the reason for doing it. If I was doing it for my website, for example, I would do it as a JPEG file. Here I can now set the quality, sort of all the other bits and pieces, the color space, Adobe 1998. If I uncheck this limit, there it is. That's what I'll do if I wanted to email it. I could limit the size for it. This is where we can change the quality. You can have the high quality if you just want to work with a JPEG. If you want to email it, drop it down to 70, 75, somewhere around there. Entirely up to you. But as I say, that is your preference. I'm going to go for a PSD file. Color space, Adobe 1998. ProPhoto RGB. ProPhoto RGB is the color space in Lightroom. Adobe 1998 is the popular one, as is the sRGB. I'm sticking with sRGB, but again, entirely up to your own personal preferences. The bit depth, 8-bit, 16-bit, entirely up to you again. Job done. Moving on, coming down to image size. This is where you can resize it. For example, if you wanted to do it for your website, if you wanted to do it for email, this is where you can resize it, the width and the height. You can also come in, you can change for the dimensions as well. You can come in, that's on the pixels, you can just go for the long side. In other words, if it's a landscape style one, you may want to do it 1024, that's where you can enter the figures. If it's on the short edge there, you can change it to the short edge. In other words, if it's 1024 by 768, you might want to put 768 in there. Entirely up to you. If you have cropped it, you may want to, and the figures there are going to be slightly smaller than the crop size you put in, you don't want to enlarge it. In other words, you don't want to interpolate it up. That's where you do it, but we'll cover all this in a separate video. We're going to go for uncheck that. I don't want to resize it. Resolution 260, but we can change that. We'll come back to that. Sharpening output. Working our way through sharpening output. I have left this unchecked. I do pre-finish to sharpen at the finished image size. We're going into Photoshop, probably end up resizing it, so I don't really want to sharpen it here and then sharpen it again in Photoshop at a finished image size. That's my own personal preference, but you can do it for screen, for the various different papers there, and you can sharpen it low, standard or high. How low, how standard, how high is, I haven't got a clue, but we're going to leave that unchecked. Right, metadata. Metadata, minimize embedded metadata. Okay, this is where if you were using it for web use, for email, you may want to take out some of the metadata. So in other words, if it's on your website and somebody right clicks on it and says, oh, that was taken at f5.6, you should have shot that at f7 or f8. This is where you can take that out and avoiding those embarrassing sort of voices and conversations that you might hear. Watermarking. This is extremely useful, but it's not when you're taking it into Photoshop. You could do a simple copyright. This we will be covering in a separate video because this is important when you're going to use it for your website use, when you're using it for slideshows, etc. This can come in really useful, but for now it's no watermarking. The post-processing, what do you want it to do after it's finished doing all the exporting? It can do nothing and go off and have a cup of coffee. It can show in Finder, it can open in Adobe Photoshop CS5, or you can choose to open it in sort of Elements or whatever other application you choose. I'm going to do show in Finder. Then you click export and off it'll go. But wait, we've already mentioned presets. What if we set this up as a preset? Just think of the time it could save you. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop down, we're going to click on add. That opens the new preset dialog box even, and we're going to put preset name of, well, don't forget we were doing this for Photoshop, so we're going to put in the word Photoshop. That's what we're calling our preset. And where it's going to go is the folder, the user preset, which is this one here, or you can of course choose the nick one, or you can put it into a new folder, entirely up to you. I'm going to go for the user preset, click in create, there it is, job done. All we have to do now is click, I'll tell you what, let's click cancel, because I'm going to select, whoops, somehow I've deselected these, so selecting those 5 files, we're going to go to file, we're going to go to export with preset, and we're going to go to Photoshop there. So this is now going to shoot off. Off it's going. There goes 2. There's 3. So any minute now it's going to go through. But what if we want to do another load of images, send them through as well as an export? So I've just thought of a problem. Let's just take a look. There it is. This is Open Finder. If you're using Windows, don't forget this will be Windows Explorer. But there's the 5 files. You can see it's renamed it. It's got the name and the sequence number. And that's the problem, our sequence number. The next time you go to send off some files, it'll also give them the same sequence number, and then it'll ask if it wants to overwrite this. So once you've set up a preset, what if you want to edit it? Well, I'll tell you what, let's just move in. Let's take this picture here and this picture here. We're going to move these across as well. We'll just bring these in, export these. Let's go to export. That's going to open this dialog box. And if we just sort of come to this, and you can see that's where we've got the name in, there it is there, and the sequence number. What if we change this to, let's just have a look, to name an original file number. That's going to give us our name there of Bristol, and the original file number, that's it there. Great stuff. Right. But yeah, it's changed it here, but our preset, don't forget, was for the other one where we had Bristol and a sequence number. To edit a preset, simply come across to where it says Photoshop, right click, choose Update with Current Settings. So choosing Update with Current Settings, that's now updated it. We can now, I'm just going to click Cancel again just to show you there's nothing up my sleeve. We're going to go to File, we're going to go to Export with Presets, we're going to go to Photoshop. That's now going to take the 2 files that we've selected. It's now exporting them. There they are there. You'll notice that the names have now come through with the name and the file, the original file number as well. They are all .psd as we asked. Just taking a look, if we have a look in Bridge, there it is in Bridge. Don't forget, we're not actually in Bridge. We're on my hard drive. We're looking, we're viewing it through Bridge as you do with all programs. You're just viewing it through to your hard drive. They're not in Bridge, they're not in Lightroom, they're not in Photoshop, they're on your hard drive and you're viewing them through the various programs. There it is, that's my image drive. Remember steering to that. Then go into my working folder. There it is there, that's the Lightroom folder we put in. If we just take a look, there it is. That's the, what's it got, 6 that we put in there. Job done. It's a great way of working. You can see how quickly and easily you can export them using presets and also editing presets as well.